Hello, my name is Stuart, the unrepentant atheist. So, I'm talking today about the idea that atheists should somehow bolster and encourage Christianity in Western countries in order to combat the rise of Islam. What do I think of this idea? You see, quite recently, Richard Dawkins was on one of the, debate shows, and I've noticed that his language around Christianity has become more sort of, shall we say, conciliatory and flattering than in the past, when he was considered a very anti-Christian or anti-religious, but also, of course, anti-Christian um, activist, militant atheist, if you like. And he made this extraordinary statement saying that Christianity is fundamentally a decent religion, and he was comparing it with Islam and stating that if there has to be a religion, then for God's sake, let it be Christianity and not Islam. I suppose that in the context of the modern world and the way that Christianity operates on the whole, one would probably have to agree with that. Okay, I know that we've got issues in the United States with Roe v. Wade. We've got religious fanatics trying to legislate so that women can't access certain branches of healthcare, notably abortion. So yes, there are those problems, but one would probably, on balance, rather live in a even a fundamentalist Christian society than a fanatical Muslim society. I have to agree with that, particularly if you compare, shall we say, the I don't know, the Bible Belt in the USA, shall we say, and if you compare that with some of the worst places in the world where Islam has got a grip, places like Yemen, Saudi Arabia, and Iran, of course, Syria. These are some of the hardest places in the world to live, particularly if you're a woman. But just generally, I would think that living in Islamic society is probably not even that nice for most people, even men, except for probably the most hard line of Muslim fanatics who feed on the kind of I don't know, sort of authoritarian nature of Islam. So the problem is with atheists. Let me just throw a statistic at you, though, because before making this video, I decided to have a quick look just to see what the figures are. Is this a real fear that Islam is becoming a bigger thing in the Western world, and that we need to somehow create some kind of buffer or some pushback against Islam? So in the UK, for example, according to the let me see, according to the 2011 census in the UK, the percentage of the population who identified as Muslim was 4.9%, or 2.7 million people. Well, that's still a very, very small minority, but I must admit that 1 in 20, say 4.9, say 5%, is actually a fairly significant number. But I suppose the worrying thing is that it's gone up from 4.9% to 6.5% of the 2021 census. So it's gone up from 2.7 million to 3.9 million. That's a lot of people. If you consider that maybe, I don't know, out of those 3.9 million, maybe maybe 500,000 of those are, shall we say, fighting age Muslims. They could put quite a significant army together, seize power, and impose Sharia law, couldn't they? I suppose that's a fairly unlikely scenario, because obviously the vast bulk of the population is still non-Muslim, shall we say, and obviously far more people identify as being Christians. Now, the worrying thing for the Christian church in Great Britain is that it's on the decline, and it looks to me like Islam is actually on the increase. That is the irrefutable position of the problem. What can atheists do about this? It's a difficult one, because atheists are basically trying to promote critical thinking and trying to promote the basic practice of not accepting God propositions unless they've met their burden of proof. And that's all it is. And sadly, if everybody would actually put their own God beliefs to the test and be honest about it, then we would probably have far fewer Christians and far fewer Muslims as well. But it has to be said that even if people didn't believe in God, they might still derive some benefit from being in Christian communities and Islamic communities. So it may well be that what we're doing on YouTube, people like me, Matt Dillahunty, and others, in promoting this way of testing one's beliefs, particularly in relation to the God question, and only accepting propositions which have met their burden of proof with what we say is a sufficient standard and quality of evidence, may be falling on deaf ears, or may be futile, because if people are already doing that and disbelieving in God but staying in the religion, because there are benefits to being in the religion, mainly community reasons, maybe financial benefits and other reasons, support, and also it might just make them feel good, then it's going to be quite difficult to use atheist arguments to get people out of those religions. How then can atheists honestly, with any intellectual honesty and integrity, recommend that if you're going to believe in God, then believe in the Christian God, because it's far less harmful than being a Muslim? How could I possibly argue that? And I don't think I can argue that. I don't think that I could say to people, look, I think it's irrational to believe in God, and I think that, however, because Islam is such a problem, for goodness sake, don't be a Muslim, be a Christian for these reasons. If you want to see the Western world become more like this, and then show them a picture of, I don't know, some fanatics in Iran after they've been insulted by an American film about, I don't know, some fictional film based on some kind of suicide bombing issue in Iran, where the leader is killed or something like that, and it's construed as an insult, and there are thousands of Muslim men screaming their heads off, burning American flags and holding up a picture of their Ayatollah. How would you like that? Or would you prefer to have, a nice British Christian society where people just go to church every Sunday, come out, have their coffee and biscuits, and then go home and have their roast beef dinners? And apart from that, there's not really too much, which is really, they don't really wear their Christianity on their sleeves. They just go to church on a Sunday. That's more or less it. Then there's Christmas, midnight mass, etc. They've got their Bible at home. They sometimes take it out, but there's nothing really too much more to Christianity. So yeah, I mean, as some of you know, I've been going to church because I've got a partner who's a Christian. I've not really had any issues. It's a lovely village, a great parish, and what they believe is an absolute lot of nonsense in my opinion, but I mean, they're nice people and they seem to be pretty much harmless. I haven't really seen any bigotry coming from them towards LGBTQ. I think they've kind of been moving in the more liberal directions. So yeah, I mean, they seem to be serious believers in the sense that I've seen how they respond to people talking about their beliefs in church, and I've seen how they sing hymns, and I've seen how they bow their heads when they pray, and yeah, they do seem to be genuine believers, but they seem to be a fairly harmless bunch. And I probably couldn't say the same for, well, I say that I mean, I think that the vast majority of Muslims in Britain are quite happy to be just left alone, run their communities the way they want to run them, and abide by British law. And I think that's okay. I don't really want to overstate or accept that things are sort of irretrievably headed towards Sharia law. I don't think that's such a credible threat that atheists need to go around and tell people who are thinking of becoming believers that they should go for Christianity and not Islam, and that atheists should be talking up Christianity in the same way that Richard Dawkins is talking up Christianity. I think that's actually quite a dangerous way to go, because if Dawkins is validating Christianity, it can only bring more people um, into believing in God, which is probably what atheists are against. We would like to see a world in which secular morality is embraced, where we have a system of morality that does not rely on a proposition in favor of the supernatural, which seems to be impossible to demonstrate. So my conclusion is that I would not be prepared to endorse Christianity, but at the same time, I can admit that I would rather, if people are going to believe in God, that they become Christians in the Western world than they become Muslims. And I would probably, on balance, like to see this increase in the Muslim population of Great Britain stop and maybe even go back. I don't really see how that's going to be possible because of the way that obviously a lot of immigration that's coming into the country are Muslims, and unless British policy changes about immigration, then I don't really see how to roll that back. But I think that at the moment we're looking at 6.5%. I'm not really too worried. I think that the next census will be in 2031. We'll see where it is. If it's doubled from 6.5 to 13, that will start to become a bit more worrying. But if we're just talking about maybe 1 percentage point increase per 10 years, I can kind of live with that. So it went from 5% to 6.5 in 10 years. That's a 1.5% increase. Well, okay, actually on 4.9%, it's more like a 35% increase, isn't it, on that? But it's only 1.5% more. But in reality, I suppose, if we take it as a percentage of what it was before, it's actually bigger. It's more like 35%. So, but if it goes from 6.5 to 7.5, 8.5 in 2041, I won't really be too worried. When it gets to maybe 15%, then maybe it'll be more time to worry. And then maybe if I'm still around, I'll be urging people, I'll be out on the street saying, convert from Islam to Christianity. Until then, I'm not really too worried about it, and I won't be endorsing Christianity. Okay, thanks for watching. Let me know your opinion. Bye for now.